Everybody gets this wrong. Everybody gets this question wrong, and it's because you don't know what the question is testing. So if we remember to predict the question here and know what these combined sentences questions are really about, we can get this right. So remember, if a writing question has a literal question, it is about the ideas in the passage, or in this case, in the two sentences. It is not about grammar, okay? All of these answer choices are grammatically correct. It is very, very, very rare for them to actually test grammar in these questions. So we know that if they're all grammatically correct, then we have to think about something else. And the reason people get this wrong is they cross out a choice because they think it's grammatically wrong, and it's not. We'll get to it. But let's take a look at the ideas in these sentences. So the two sentences that they want us to fix are right here. The idea is obviously very attractive. An obscure method of photography may be made available to many with little expense. So that is also grammatically correct, but we want to combine the ideas. We want to combine those sentences in some way. Okay? So let's look at choice A here. With the idea being obviously very attractive, an obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense. So the thing that jumps out to me the most that makes this choice seem bad is the word being. I really don't like that word, and in these combined sentences questions in particular, it tends to appear in wrong answer choices. It's not always wrong, but it's a bad sign. And so it's hard to maybe pinpoint what's bad about this, but that is if I can, that is the one thing. What's really going on here is that it's kind of backwardsy sounding. With the idea being obviously very attractive, I don't know what the idea is. It's kind of confusing to me what we're referring to. The idea is the obscure method of photography, or the idea is that we're making that obscure method available. Like something's not right. I don't know what we're referring to here. So there's some sort of ambiguity, and that's not great, right? Because we want the ideas to flow together. We want to understand what the sentences are trying to say. Let's keep going. So I would probably cross this out, but let's keep going. The idea is obviously very attractive. An obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense. So this is exactly what's written, right? The only difference is that we have this colon. And people panic at that. They think, oh, well, colons are for lists. Colons are for lists. I can't use a colon here. Again, this is not testing grammar. We can assume that the colon is being used correctly. And so if you assume that, then you have a different question, right? What's unclear about this? Is there anything about these ideas that isn't clear? And the answer is no, this does flow. And it also has to do with the way that colons are actually supposed to be used. We learn that a colon is for lists. And that's kind of true. But it's not just for lists, it's for all sorts of things. What a colon does is that the part after the colon answers or explains a question that's kind of raised by the first part, okay? So grammatically, there is a requirement. The first part needs to be a complete sentence, and that is true. So that is, the idea is obviously very attractive. That's a sentence. It's a short sentence, but it's a sentence. So that's grammatically, we're good. We've done exactly what a colon needs to do grammatically. As far as the ideas, though, and the way that a colon actually functions, we can turn that sentence into a question. The idea is obviously very attractive. Why is it attractive? Because an obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense. See, that's what a colon really does. It connects ideas, but it does it in this way that kind of implies that we're going to answer or explain something that's, stated but not necessarily obvious. We're going to get more information about something. So sometimes a list is the way that we get more information. The list is more an information or explanation of what we're introducing, but a list is just one way of providing more information. So this is going to be the answer. I know why people don't pick this, is you don't use colons in your own writing, and your assumption is that it must be wrong because it's weird. That's a bad assumption, and knowing that they're not testing grammar, I think, makes this choice much more attractive, especially when we look at the others. An obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense, and the idea is very attractive. Again, this idea is very vague to me. I don't know what we're referring to, so that's a little confusing. But in general, with combined sentences questions, and is a weak connector, right? It doesn't really connect ideas. It doesn't add a lot of juice. It's just kind of like, okay, well, instead of a period, I'm going to use an and there's no flow of ideas. I know this seems crazy to think about, but the colon is a stronger connection than the and. One punctuation mark says more than actual words say. That's pretty remarkable, but that goes to show what a colon really does, and if we understand it, it's actually a very powerful thing. I use it in my own writing a lot because it's such a useful thing. Let's look at D. An obscure method of photography, an idea that is obviously very attractive, may be made available to many at little expense. Again, this idea is not clear. It's this floating thing, and it's not clear what I'm referring to. They're saying, I guess, that the photography, the method of photography is the idea. Something's wrong, right? And so there's this ambiguity, plus we have this kind of weird thing I'm going to highlight here to show you. The main sentence in yellow is interrupted by this clause. And generally, again, in combined sentences questions, that's not great. We don't like to have a lot of interruptions. We want ideas to flow. Interrupting is breaking the flow. So the real sentence here is an obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense. But we've thrown this random thing in there, and it's kind of just breaking it up. So B is the answer. And again, very few people pick it because they're so nervous about the colon. But hopefully I've kind of given you that little, confidence in that punctuation mark. But more importantly, if you recognize that these answer choices are grammatically correct, because that's what the question is testing, ideas, not grammar, then that changes the way you think about them, right? Then the part of your brain that worries about grammar gets turned off. And you can trust other things. We can trust the ideas, or we can even think a little bit in terms of style and try to listen for the choice that sounds best. And I do think if you ignore the weirdness of the colon, choice B does sound best. It sounds like those ideas kind of flow. So the only hiccup people have here is the grammar. And if you can kind of turn that part off, that's what predicting the question is all about, is turning on and off the right parts of your brain. If you can get in the habit of doing that reliably, you will not fall for traps, and you will know your task on every type of question on the test.